In this video tutorial, we're going to go through the data that you have for task 3 and bring that into ArcGIS. So you should have downloaded two files, the Pat's Cabin Survey Points CSV file, as well as the task 3 Pat's Cabin shape files. If we open up that CSV file, assuming you have Excel on your machine, what we'll see is the first row is a header column, and it's got P for point, X for X coordinate, Y for Y coordinate, Z for elevation. It's got a code, which is going to become important. It's got this coordinate quality, or CQ here, which is a measure of the accuracy of the individual points, and then standard deviation of individual points, and then it's got this time column here. Okay. And so this is GPS data, raw topographic data, and what the code here stands for is the REW, our right edge of waters. Toes are the toes of a slope where there's a grade break. Topo are just regular points. OS are onshore points, so those are going to be shore, topo points that are in the water. LEW are left edge of water points. And I believe that's everything that's in here. Oh, and then there's TOB, which are top of bank points. Okay, and so what's really important when you're dealing with this raw topographic survey data like this is that there is a header. If there is no header row, then you will not be able to import this into ArcGIS. And then it's also very critical that there are no spaces or funny characters in any of the column names for the header. If there are, Arc will not be able to read them in. Okay, so that's all we need to look at there. I don't need to save that. And then we had the zip file, so I'm going to go ahead and unzip that to here. And what I'm going to see is that there are two shape files. One is a 3D break lines shape file, and the other is a water limits. The 3D break lines shape file is basically going to be a 3D polyline that connects the dots on those toe shots, those TOE shots, and those top of bank TOB and any other grade break shots. And so those are going to be what we call break lines, and we'll use those in our second iteration of constructing our 10. If we take a look here down below, we've got this water limits. And basically, the water's edge is a polygon that you'll want when we build the water surface tin. And it's going to take a while for you to do, so I'm just having some minor mercy on you, and I'm going to provide that to you. You'll still have to make a polygon boundary for the rest of the topographic data. Okay, so that's it for the data that we've got. I've put this in this task 3 folder. So now I'm going to come into a blank ArcMap document, and I'm going to bring some of that data in. And so what I want to start with is the XY data. So I go to File, Add Data, Add XY Data. And when I bring this in, I'm going to navigate. So task 3, and I can see those survey points right there. Go ahead and hit add, and what should happen if the header is formatted correctly is it should automatically see the X and the Y field and put those in here. If it doesn't, you know that there's something wrong with your header, and you need to go back and open that up in a text editor or in Microsoft Excel and try and change that. It helps if we specify what the elevation field is, and so that is Z in this place. In this case, and then it's critical that we bring in the coordinate system. So we'll edit this, and I told you in the instructions that this is a projected coordinate system in UTM NAD 83 zone 10 north. Okay, we can also bring in oh, actually we won't do that here. Okay, so go ahead and hit OK, and then click OK. It's going to warn us there's no object ID field. That's typical because we didn't assign one. And now it brings in this raw survey data. And if we take a look at the attribute table, we should see exactly what we were looking at in that CSV file earlier. and indeed we do. And so here are all those different columns that we were looking at. Okay. And so first thing I'm going to do before we get too far is I'm going to save this map document in my task 3 folder. I'm going to unoriginally just call it task 3. And I'm going to go to my properties, make sure I have relative path names to data sources. That's good. And task 3, Bridge Creek 2010 topo. This is a topo survey of Pat's Cabin Creek. Okay. And what I should also do is create myself in here a new little file geodatabase, which will become the default geodatabase for task 3. And so I'll probably just call this Pat's Cabin 2010 topo. Okay, and then if I come back into my map properties, of course I will go ahead and set that as my default geodatabase for the map document. With those changes in place, I'm going to now bring in those shape files. So the first one I'll bring in is this 3D break lines. So I bring that in. I can see that basically this is a 3D polylines, and they're connecting the dots where there were grade breaks. It may be helpful to change the symbology of these points based on the type of point that they were. So if I change that to something a little smaller and then go by this code, add all values, I can see I've got a whole bunch of different things. And then what I will probably try and do here is change the color of my water's edge shots, and maybe even the size, so that those water edge shots stand out. So right edge of water, and then I've got my left edge of water. Go ahead and hit OK. And so now I can see some of those points a little bit more clearly, and I can see these points up here are my grade break shots, and so I've got all these break lines in here. And if I were to look at the attribute table, I would notice that this is a polyline with the ZM. That's indicating that's a 3D polyline, and so it's got actual geometry on that. Okay. So the last thing that we'll bring in are I'm going to turn off the 3D break lines for a moment. Last thing we'll bring in is that water edge polygon, or water limits. And it's a little bit difficult to see because it's put it underneath here. Change that. Now if I zoom in, I'll see that that has been drawn right up against the water's edge points on all of this here. Okay, and so the last thing I want to do is just bring in a base map to give me a little bit of context. And I'll just bring in some imagery. Going to give me the standard warning that that imagery is in a geographic as opposed to a projected coordinate system. And now it's slowly trying to draw that. So once that comes in, I can see all those grade break shots. Again, if I turn on the break lines, sort of makes some sense in that they come up here along the edge of where we surveyed. And so this is a little reach in Bridge Creek that's called the Pat's Cabin Reach. If I zoom out just a hair here, we'll see where it gets its name. The flow, in this case, just for some context, the flow is from upstream at the bottom right to downstream at the top left of the page. So it's flowing northwest, and Bridge Creek. So it flows northwest up into the John Day, which is a left bank tributary that comes in from the south into the Columbia River and then flows out to the Pacific. Where this reach gets its name is this little dry wash right here. This is called Pat's Cabin Creek. And so this reach is called Pat's Cabin simply because of its vicinity to that tributary. So that's all I wanted to do to go through the data that was provided to you and give you a little bit of context.